Right now, somewhere near you, a truck is carrying something you need. You just don't know it yet. There's a semi on a highway 40 miles from your house, loaded with the milk that will be on your grocery shelf tomorrow morning. There's a tanker bringing diesel to the gas station you'll fill up at on Thursday. There's a refrigerated trailer hauling insulin from a manufacturing plant in Indiana to a distribution center that serves 11 states. You never see any of this. You never think about it. And that is exactly the point. The entire system works because it's invisible. 72% of everything you eat, wear, build with, and depend on to stay alive arrives by truck. Not by train, not by plane, by truck. The United States moves 11 billion tons of freight on trucks every single year. That's not a supply chain, that's a circulatory system. And tonight, every truck over 3.5 tons just disappeared. Every semi, every 18-wheeler, every box truck, every tanker, every flatbed, every garbage truck, every concrete mixer, every fire engine, gone. Vans and cars still work fine. Your Uber still shows up. The mail carrier's little vehicle still rolls through the neighborhood. But the big trucks, the ones that actually move civilization from one place to the next, they're gone for 2 weeks. 14 days. And you're about to find out that your city is not a city. It's a patient on life support, and someone just unplugged the machine. The first morning feels almost normal. Traffic is lighter, actually. No semis clogging the highway. No big rigs in the right lane doing 62 in a 65 zone. Your commute is faster. You might even enjoy it. But behind the scenes, the clock is already running. The average grocery store in America operates on a 2 to 3 day supply of perishable goods. Not 2 to 3 weeks. Days. The store gets daily deliveries of milk, bread, eggs, and fresh produce because there's no room to stockpile and no reason to. The system delivers exactly what's needed, exactly when it's needed. This model is called just-in-time delivery, and it is the backbone of modern commerce. Warehouses don't hoard. Stores don't hoard. Hospitals don't hoard. Everyone trusts that the next truck is always coming. By noon on day one, the first shortages start, and they start in the place that can least afford them. Hospitals receive supply deliveries multiple times per week, sometimes daily. Syringes, IV bags, surgical gloves, catheters, suture kits, prescription medications, blood products. Hospitals in the U.S. spend $83 billion a year on these basic supplies alone, and almost all of it arrives by truck. By the end of day one, hospital administrators across the country are on the phone with each other, trying to figure out who has extra stock of what. The answer, mostly, is nobody. Because the whole point of just-in-time is that nobody keeps extra stock. That's how you save money. That's also how you build a system with zero margin for error. Meanwhile, something quieter is happening at gas stations. The average station in America sells about 3,000 gallons of fuel per day. A tanker truck holds between 8 and 11,000 gallons. Busy stations get refueled every 1 to 3 days. Rural stations might go a week. But here's what matters. There are 150,000 gas stations in the US, and not a single one of them makes its own fuel. Every drop arrives by tanker truck from one of roughly 1,300 fuel terminals scattered around the country. No tanker trucks, no fuel deliveries. Period. By the end of day one, the highest traffic stations along major highways are already pumping air. Day two, and the average person starts noticing. Grocery stores are patchy. The produce section looks picked over. The milk shelf has gaps. Bread is thin. None of this is catastrophic yet, but the pattern is visible, and visible patterns create panic. Panic is the accelerant. The moment people sense a shortage, they don't buy what they need, they buy what they might need, times 5. Pandemic-era toilet paper hoarding proved this beyond any doubt. 21% of household paper products were out of stock at US stores during the early pandemic, not because production stopped, but because people bought 4 months of supply in a single afternoon. And that happened when trucks were still running. Now picture that behavior with no trucks coming to restock the shelves at all. By the evening of day 2, grocery stores in major metro areas are experiencing genuine runs. canned goods, bottled water, rice, dried pasta. The shelves thin out from the center of the store to the edges. Fresh food goes first because it was already almost gone. Then the pantry staples go because those are what people grab when they're scared. Store managers know the truck isn't coming tomorrow, or the day after. They start rationing, but rationing a grocery store in America is something no one has trained for. There's no playbook. There's no law that says how much rice one person is allowed to buy. And the garbage trucks are gone too. New York City alone produces over 10,000 tons of garbage per day. That's roughly the weight of 3,000 mid-size cars, every single day, in one city. Day 2, it's just bags on the curb. It smells. People complain. Nobody is thinking about rats yet. Remember the rats. They become important later. Day 3 crosses into territory that starts to feel structural. Gas stations across the country are going dark. Not just the busy highway stops, but suburban stations, neighborhood stations. Even a low-volume rural station only has enough fuel for a week or two, and that's under normal demand. Demand is not normal right now. People are topping off their tanks every chance they get because they can see the stations closing. This creates a death spiral. The more stations that run dry, the more people panic buy at the remaining ones, which drains those faster. By end of day 3, fuel availability in major cities has dropped by over half. This hits backup systems hard. Hospitals have backup generators. Data centers have backup generators. Cell towers have backup generators. Those generators have fuel tanks sized for hours or days of emergency use, not weeks, and they get refueled by tanker trucks. The assumption was always that the generator bridges you through a power outage until the grid comes back. Nobody designed a system where the generator has to be your primary power source for 14 days with no way to refuel it. Day 4, the pharmacies fall. Most retail pharmacies carry about a 2-week supply of common medications, but that number assumes normal prescription patterns. When people realize the trucks aren't coming, they try to refill everything early. Blood pressure medication, insulin, antidepressants, inhalers, antibiotics. Pharmacists start making calls they've never had to make before. Do I fill this prescription fully, or do I give everyone a partial fill so the supply stretches further? There's no protocol for this. And remember that refrigerated trailer full of insulin from the opening? It was heading to a distribution center that serves 11 states. It never arrived. The roughly 8 million Americans who depend on insulin are now watching their supply with a level of focus that borders on mathematical. Every unit counts. Every meal is a calculation. Fire response is in crisis. Fire trucks are over 3.5 tons, so they're gone with everything else. A standard fire engine carries between 500 and 750 gallons of water, and a pump that can push 1,000 gallons per minute. A fire extinguisher holds about 10 pounds of suppressant and lasts roughly 15 seconds. These are not comparable tools. House fires that would have been contained in 20 minutes now burn entire structures. In dense neighborhoods, they spread. Day 5 and 6, and the water situation starts to surface. This is the one nobody sees coming, because you turn on your faucet and water comes out, so water feels like infrastructure, not logistics. But water treatment plants depend on chemicals: chlorine, fluoride, aluminum sulfate, sodium hydroxide. These chemicals don't grow at the plant. They're manufactured elsewhere and delivered by truck. Most treatment plants receive chemical shipments every 1 to 2 weeks. Some large plants go through several truckloads per week. The chemicals already in the system keep working for a while, but the levels start dropping. By day 5 or 6, the first boil water advisories start appearing. Small towns with smaller reserves go first. The announcements are calm, official. Boil your water before drinking it. Use bottled water if available. But bottled water arrived at stores by truck, and the stores are already stripped. And boiling water requires energy, and if your stove is electric and the grid is straining, or if your stove is gas and your gas supply depends on truck-delivered propane, then boiling water just became its own problem. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what's happening to the people between the cracks. 46 million Americans are over the age of 65. A significant percentage of them depend on mail-order pharmacy programs for maintenance medications. Those prescriptions are sitting in a distribution warehouse somewhere with no truck to carry them the final 300 miles. Dialysis centers that receive supplies by truck are stretching what they have across more patients per session. Home oxygen concentrators work on electricity, but the ones that run on compressed oxygen tanks get those tanks delivered by, you can guess. The most vulnerable people in the country are running out of the specific things keeping them alive, and no one is coming. Day 7. 1 week in. And this is where the scenario changes into something different. For the first 6 days, this was a supply chain problem. Shelves empty, fuel gone, medicine scarce. A logistics catastrophe. Starting on day 7, it stops being about what people don't have and starts being about what people do to each other when they don't have it. Grocery stores are empty. Not picked over, empty. The just-in-time model that fed 330 million people so efficiently has hit its absolute wall. 7 days of zero inbound freight means zero product on shelves. People are now getting food from whatever they had at home, from neighbors, from local farms distributing with pickup trucks and vans. But here's the fracture. Not everyone prepared equally. Not everyone had a pantry. Not everyone lives near a farm. And the people who are running out of food can see the people who aren't. The social contract, the unspoken agreement that we don't take what belongs to someone else because the system provides enough for everyone, that contract was underwritten by trucks. The trucks guaranteed abundance. Abundance made cooperation easy. Remove the abundance, and cooperation gets expensive. On day 7, the first pharmacy break-ins happen. Not by criminals, by parents whose children need albuterol inhalers. By diabetics who can do the math on their remaining insulin supply and can see that it doesn't reach day 14. These are people who have never stolen anything in their lives, making a calculation that the law matters less than their child breathing through the night. Police departments are overwhelmed, not by crime waves, but by the impossible task of deciding what to enforce. A cop standing in front of a looted pharmacy full of asthma medication has to decide in real time whether this is a crime scene or a rescue. That question has no clean answer, and every officer in the country is facing some version of it simultaneously. Gas stations with remaining fuel have become flashpoints. Some station owners are price gouging, charging $15 or $20 a gallon. Some have hired armed security. Some have simply locked the pumps and are sitting inside with the lights off, waiting this out. Fights break out in fuel lines. Not organized violence, just 2 exhausted people who've been waiting 4 hours for gas, and one of them cuts the line. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what happens to governance itself. City councils are holding emergency sessions with no clear authority to do what needs doing. Can a mayor legally commandeer food from a warehouse? Can a governor order pharmacies to distribute medications without prescriptions? Can the National Guard be deployed to protect grocery stores in a scenario where there's nothing on the shelves to protect? The legal infrastructure of the country was built for a world where trucks run. The statutes, the supply assumptions, the emergency management playbooks, all of them assume that logistics continue in some form. Nobody wrote the law for a world where distribution stops completely. Local officials are improvising, and improvisation at the government level looks a lot like making rules up as you go, which looks a lot like the rules don't apply anymore. Day 8 and 9. The category shift deepens. This is no longer a question of when things get restocked. It's a question of what kind of society exists when the trucks come back. Neighborhoods are self-organizing in 2 very different patterns. Some are pooling resources, running informal rationing, coordinating with local farms, checking on elderly residents. Others are fragmenting. Gated communities have residents standing watch at entrances. Apartment complexes in food deserts, neighborhoods that had no grocery stores to begin with, are the hardest hit, and they were already the most under-resourced before this started. The geography of inequality that everyone knew about but mostly ignored is now the geography of survival. The communities with the oldest, least efficient social structures, the ones where people still knock on each other's doors, are outperforming the ones with the best technology and the most convenience. The digital economy is still technically functioning, but it's becoming irrelevant. You can Venmo someone for a dozen eggs, but only if someone near you has eggs. Amazon's website still works. You can browse, click, add to cart, check out. Your order confirmation arrives instantly, but nothing ships. The entire middle of the supply chain, factory to regional warehouse to local hub, runs on trucks. The last-mile delivery vans are still driving around, but they've been delivering the same dwindling pool of pre-staged inventory for a week. They're circulatory capillaries with no blood flowing into them. Construction has been dead since day one, but now the downstream effects are showing. Road repair stopped. Bridge maintenance stopped. Any infrastructure that was mid-repair when the trucks vanished stays broken. And here's a detail that matters more than it should. Many municipal water main breaks are repaired using heavy equipment and replacement parts that arrive by truck. A water main break in week 2 of this scenario means a neighborhood loses water with no ability to fix it until trucks return. File that one alongside the rats. Day 10. The rats. 6 days ago, bags of garbage started piling on curbs. Then restaurant waste started accumulating in backlots. Then overflow from dumpsters that were already full on day 1 spread across sidewalks and alleys. New York City has now accumulated roughly 100,000 tons of uncollected waste. Rat populations respond to food availability with terrifying speed. A single pair of rats can produce up to 15,000 descendants in a year under ideal conditions. And right now, conditions in American cities are approaching ideal. Mountains of exposed organic waste, reduced human foot traffic in commercial areas, disrupted pest control services whose supply trucks never came. The rat problem on day 2 was aesthetic. By day 10, it's a disease vector. Leptospirosis spreads through rat urine contaminating water or soil. In a city where boil water advisories are already in effect, and not everyone has the energy to boil, a leptospirosis outbreak isn't hypothetical. It's a public health textbook waiting to happen. And remember, this scenario isn't a war. It's not a pandemic. It's not an earthquake. It's just the truck stopping. Every disease, every fire, every act of desperate theft, every neighborhood fracture, all of it traces back to the absence of vehicles that most people find mildly annoying on the highway. Day 11 and 12. Airlines grounded most flights days ago, not because planes need trucks, but because jet fuel arrives at airports by tanker truck or pipeline, and many smaller regional airports depend entirely on truck delivery. Even major airports with pipeline connections need trucks for ground operations, catering, luggage handling equipment fuel, and de-icing fluid. The skies have been getting quieter all week. The economic damage is compounding in ways that don't make headlines but destroy livelihoods. Every factory that depends on truck-delivered raw materials shut down within the first 3 days. Assembly lines that build cars, appliances, electronics, furniture, all idle. The workers were sent home. But those workers still have rent due, still have mortgages. The economy didn't pause. The income did. A farmer in California's Central Valley has 400 acres of ripe tomatoes and no way to move them. The food exists, it just can't reach anyone. And that farmer is watching a season of work rot in the field while people 100 miles away are rationing canned pumpkin from 2 Thanksgivings ago. This might be the cruelest detail of the whole scenario. America is not experiencing a food shortage. American farms produce enough to feed the country several times over. What America is experiencing is a distribution death. The food is there. Nobody can get to it. Day 13. People aren't scared the way they were on day 7. There's something worse. They're recalibrating. The panic phase burned itself out. What replaced it is a grim, quiet arithmetic. How many cans left? How many doses of medication? How many gallons of gas? People are making decisions they'll carry for the rest of their lives. A mother in suburban Ohio drives 40 miles on her last quarter tank of gas to a rural farm stand because someone on a neighborhood group chat said they still had eggs. She buys 8 dozen. On the drive home, she passes 3 people walking on the shoulder of the road, heading the same direction she just came from, on foot. She doesn't stop. She thinks about it for years. Hospitals have been in survival mode for a week. Elective surgeries stopped on day 3. Non-critical patients were sent home on day 4. Medications that require refrigeration are at risk because backup generators have been running for 10 days on finite fuel. Some hospitals in rural areas have gone dark entirely, transferring remaining patients to larger facilities by ambulance and personal vehicles. The urban hospitals absorbing those patients are already past capacity. Every hospital administrator in the country has been doing the same math for days. How many hours of generator fuel remain? Which medications expire next? Which patients can be safely discharged? Which ones cannot? The math gets worse every morning. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is the insulin. Remember that refrigerated trailer from the opening? The one heading to a distribution center serving 11 states? Those 11 states have been redistributing from existing local stock for 2 weeks. The local stock was never meant to last 2 weeks. It was meant to last until the next truck. Endocrinologists in 6 states are now reporting patients arriving in diabetic ketoacidosis, a condition that is fully preventable with adequate insulin supply. Some of those patients are children. The truck that would have prevented every single one of those cases was one delivery, one trailer, one driver, and it never came. Day 14. The trucks come back, and you'd think it snaps back to normal. It does not. Gas stations can be refilled within a day. Grocery stores can restock perishables within 72 hours. Mail will resume with a massive backlog. But some of what broke during these 2 weeks doesn't unbend. Water systems that lost chemical treatment need days of flushing and testing before they're certified safe. Hospitals that depleted their supply chains will take weeks to rebuild inventory. And some medications have manufacturing lead times measured in months. The garbage will take weeks to clear. 100,000 tons of waste in New York alone. Trucks will run double shifts for a month on garbage collection alone. The crops that rotted are gone for the season, and a single harvest loss in a major agricultural region sends price shocks through the food system for 6 months. Infrastructure that was mid-repair sat exposed to weather for 2 weeks. The water main that burst on day 9 still needs the parts that were on a truck that never came. But those are the physical costs. The other costs are harder to measure. The house fire on day 6 that took a family of 4 because the nearest fire response was a man with an extinguisher. The pharmacy break-ins that will be prosecuted because the law doesn't have a category for stealing medicine to keep your kid alive. The neighborhoods that fractured along lines that were always there but never tested. The trust in systems that people will be slow to rebuild because now they know. They know the whole thing runs on trucks, and the trucks have no backup. There is no strategic reserve of trucking capacity. There is no warehouse with 30 days of everything a country needs. There is only the next truck, and the next, and the next. A rolling tide of 3.5 million drivers and 11 billion tons of freight that has to keep moving every single day, or the richest country on earth starts coming apart in 72 hours. You drove past a semi on your way to work this morning. You probably found it annoying, a little slow, a little too wide when you're trying to merge. You have never once looked at that truck and thought, that is the thinnest wall between me and a world I am not prepared for. But it is.